You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again on the old Options Insider Radio Network, kicking things off as we are wont to do here with the bi-weekly options extravaganza known far and wide as the Option Block. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the aforementioned network. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Looking forward to a fun week of content coming at you multiple times a day here, as we are known to do throughout the week. So buckle in. Strap in if you're on the on-demand side. Remember, if you're on the on-demand side, you like what you hear. We know there are more of you these days than ever before. Then just keep rating and reviewing. Helps new folks continue to discover the content day after day, week after week, month after month. Of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you want to join our great pro Q&As. Another great one coming up tomorrow. Mr. Scott Nations, the creator of VolQ, jumping back into the hot seat. That guy loves to be in the hot seat. He loves to answer your questions. You got questions about Vol? Hit him up tomorrow over there. Start getting them in now over there at theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more about all that fun and then join the partay. That is, of course, the pro. You get live, you get giveaways, you get oddities, all sorts of fun stuff piling in over there. Just saw a shipment come in for some of those pro trading crates. So all sorts of good stuff coming and going here for the pro folks out there. Let's see who's joining us. Actually, no, before we get to that, it is Monday. I'm getting ahead of myself. It is Monday. So we like to commence our broadcast week in style, listeners. We have been doing it this way for a while. It was requested by I won't say who on the show here, and it has turned into a very fun segment. Many of you love it. They look forward to it at the beginning of every week. I see you speculating already in the chat about who it will be this week. We're going to dial it back a little bit. We're going to go back. I will give you this hint. This is a repeat performance. This is the person we have done before. It's been a while. This is an iconic person from the 80s wrestling. By the way, if you're one of the main new people, this is where we guess an 80s wrestler by their entrance music, listeners. And this person is important for many reasons. By the way, our two compatriots here are vying. I mentioned it last week on the show. We do now have an official prize. So now things are heating up as we get into the second half of the year. There is an official prize for this 80s wrestling guessing game, and it is legit. I talked about it before. I will talk about it more maybe a little bit later here on the show. These two fellows are now contending for an epic prize. So it used to be before, it was kind of willy-nilly. It was kind of fun. No, now there's serious stakes involved here for who can name our next 80s wrestler via his entrance music. Here we go. that character, this person, up there with the icons of 80s wrestling. About as iconic as it gets. It's not quite like, I wouldn't say it's like a Hogan, but he's up there. I definitely would say he's up, definitely in, like, I'd say the hallowed second tier, the second echelon of iconic 80s wrestlers. What happens now, listeners? Okay. We have played our mute. He still wants to pop in there. No, you're done, at least for now. We are now joined, of course, by Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management and the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. When I count down from 3, I shall 3, 2, 1, I shall say go. And then whoever says buzz first, listeners, they shall be the one who is allowed to guess first. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. No one wants to buzz. No one has any idea.
I'm leaving it for the meatball.
Wow. Okay, you know what? Maybe I can do something else then to help jog your memory. But this one's going to make it pretty obvious. I don't know if this could be for the epic prize then. But here we go. Let's see if I could find what I wanted. All right, here we go. So when I play this will reveal it. This will reveal who it is. Here we go.
Disease.
Okay. Who said it? You said Sergeant Slaughter. Mike, did you say buzz first?
I said got it.
Okay, so you said got it. So I'll take that as a buzz. So I assume you know what the name is, Uncle Mike?
I'll go with Sergeant Slaughter.
Yes, that was.
He is not a second tier wrestler. He is a first tier wrestler.
I agree. He is up there in the 80s pantheon. I just didn't want to cause.
He became the commissioner.
Yeah, I mean,
he won the world heavyweight title multiple times. He famously took the other side of Iraq. He took Iraq's side during the Gulf War in what was one of the craziest subplots.
We don't speak of that.
Within him and the Iron Sheik were partners. He was, that was not one of his better moves, but I think we all know him as the host of G.I. Joe and maybe the greatest G.I. Joe figure in history. All right, I'm glad you say that. I'm going to cut you off there because the prize you two are now playing for, which I guess Uncle Mike gets a point for because he technically said buzz first, even though the meatball shouted it out. Maybe I'll be generous and let you both have a point to start things off. The prize you are playing for, I said, there were 2 80s wrestling-themed exclusives that were unveiled a couple of weeks ago at the San Diego Comic-Con. I know one of those things that once they are unveiled, they're gone in like 60 seconds. I did manage to secure one of them. And it is a re-release now, a new 80s era vintage, but updated modern Sergeant Slaughter in his G.I. Joe gear. Because that's the way I like Sergeant Slaughter, in his G.I. Joe gear. Complete with all of his vintage stuff. Complete actually with a little, I do believe, boxed action figure of himself. It is awesome. Sold out immediately. I did procure actually 2 because I want one too. But you guys are going to be fighting to have who can put that on their desk. I think that is maybe you want to keep it mint in box and probably worth some money. I don't know. That's up to you. Yeah, that's going mint in box. I can tell you that's going up. That'll go up on my shelf with my He-Man guys.
The other thing I tried to get, this one it vanished before I could get it, was a 2-pack from No Holds Barred of Zeus and Hogan figures done up in a VHS style cassette box. It looked amazing. That one was gone before I could even click on the button, but I did manage to secure Sergeant Slaughter. So you guys are playing for something pretty. This thing is so popular. It says it might not ship till next June. So I don't know. We'll see if we can get it to you before then. Hopefully before June, but that is what you are playing for. I'll be generous. We gave Uncle Mike a point last week because he's the only one playing. And this week he both kind of said, maybe I'll leave it up to the chat. Who should get the points, listeners? Should they both get a point and be generous, start things off? Should we give it to Uncle Mike for going first, even though he didn't say it? He did kind of make the noise. Or the meatball for kind of cheating and yelling the name. You guys hit us up. Let us know. As we keep on rolling, it is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
Man, our chat had no problem guessing that. They were all saying Sergeants. They knew it before, I think before even we played the which, by the way, was from the G.I. Joe, the movie, which is, of course, one of Sergeant Slaughter's epic appearances in G.I. Probably the best ever extension of a wrestling gimmick into some other franchise is Sergeant Slaughter as a G.I. Joe character. You could argue he was more famous as a G.I. Joe character even than he was as a wrestler. But I digress. Let's get on into what the markets are giving us today. And it's another one of those days, listeners, where you wait 5 minutes and you get something new on the screen. We started off the day kind of red, nothing crazy, but red across the board. Now, as we're waiting here, apparently the Bulls found out, oh, there was a sell-off. We need to buy that because we are now back in the green. The Dow and the NASDAQ up a little over 0.5%, and the S&P closing in 0.5%, about 0.4% to the upside now. So apparently another day that ends in Y means another day you got to buy out there on the broad markets. That means our vol friends, they're kind of treading water a little bit today. We're down, then we're up. So we actually are seeing some volatility exhibited out there today, listeners, which means we're not seeing, you might look at it and say, oh, green on the screen, vol's getting annihilated. Not quite. We're seeing VIX was actually just flirting with almost exactly a 20 handle when we kicked off the show. Puts it down about 0.2 of a point, so roughly unched from where it was on Thursday's show. VVIX at about an 88. That puts it down about 3 points from where it was last show. VXX, so that weirdo product now, I don't know what else you want to call it. 2130, that's also unched from last show. UVXY, 880, man, getting cheap. UVXY, 880, down almost 0.5 point from where it was on Thursday's show. So we were talking about things get dubious when it gets below 10. We're already below 9 and is continuing to erode like clockwork here. SVIX, our inverse friend, at about a 14, even when we kicked off the show, up about 1/3 of a point. UVIX, so our levered friend, 870, up about 0.5 point from where it was. So UVXY and UVIX hanging out almost exactly the same level, which is kind of interesting. And then VolQ, 23.5, down almost a full point, about 0.8 of a point. Remember, if you got VolQ questions, anything else, Scott Nations, the creator of said product, going to be in the hot seat with us tomorrow. Let's go around the horn. Since technically I did give it to him first, we'll go to the Uncle list of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, any enduring memories of the awesome hatted one known as Sergeant Slaughter? Easy for me to say. Have at it. And then B, what's lighting up your tape today, sir?
Well, I mean, the main memories that I have of Sergeant Slaughter are from his early days. The WWF, where he came out and he would say the Pledge of Allegiance before a good match, beat the tar out of the Iron Sheik, and then chase him around afterwards. And that was pretty much what I remember about him. And I don't know if he was as much. Well, I mean, I think that his popularity grew a lot more, not necessarily from the love of Sergeant Slaughter, but just from the utter hatred of the Iron Sheik. I mean, he was the most evil anything that you could imagine in wrestling history. And I think Sergeant Slaughter really capitalized on that one. So definitely love the Sergeant Slaughter. But I think the Iron Sheik is like a lot of other baby faces in WWF history. He's really responsible for helping a lot of people do a lot of great things just because of how much pure evil that guy represented when he would go in the ring and saying Iran #1, USA Hakpu. And the guy was something else. In terms of the markets, there's something else as well. It didn't start out so hot today, but now the bulls have come in a little bit. We have roughly a 40-point range, so we can't really say it's a major market mover by any means for the daily movement that we have, but we're higher on the day, which for those of us bulls out there, that's definitely a good thing. I think on the day, I'd be interested to see if the SPX can crack the 4,300 mark. The S&P Mini has on the futures side of it. It's below it again, but I'll be interested to see if we can close above 4,300 just because throughout the day, that's definitely kind of been a stopping point. Just the high 90s haven't quite been able to break through it. So we do have that. The other thing that I'm watching, of course, is the 10-year note. We have a little bit of a rally in that today. So that's something to where we're getting buyers in both stocks and bonds, but it's not a lot of significant movement in either of those two to really say that it's a crazy thing. In the VIX world, I'll be excited to hear what Sebastian has to say about the VIX, but we're right around the 20 mark. We're very close to that right now, so it's a key number. Definitely watching that. Silver has sold off a little bit today, down 2%. The other things with which I'm watching from the standpoint of the sectors, of course, the consumer discretionary is leading on the day, up about 0.8%. We also have consumer staples doing fairly well, up 0.8%. Energy is what's kind of pulling this thing down at this stage. So that's actually the only big negative sector with which we have. Everything else is either flat or ahead, with XLE down roughly 1.75%. We have crude oil down below the 90 mark again at the 89 level. So I think a lot of this is that we're not getting a ton of movement, but we're getting a few sellers in the energy space and a few buyers in the consumer discretionary space. And it's kind of balancing out to give us a slightly bullish market on the day. So that's what I'm seeing on the day. And next stop, over 4,300, we hope.
You hope indeed. Our chat, man, they're feeling pretty savage today. They're not deciding to give you guys any points. They're saying here that because they all were able to get it with just one clue and you guys needed 2 clues, they say no points for either of you. Wow, our chat, I'm not in a giving mood today. I'll have to mull over what we do with these points. We do have a hot and heavy, pretty awesome prize. So it's serious business now. Mr. Meatball.
So come into the Marine Corps, to the halls of Montezuma. Didn't he also come into that as well? That's what I remember him coming in to.
He used to have a Marine Honor Guard too, but this is the official. We go by what the official, when WWE says is their official music. That's what we have. This is not, I don't think this has changed. Maybe they updated it later on, but I don't think this is new music for Sergeant.
Okay.
This one I recall for him. But alas, that's the game. We're playing for big stakes now. You can't just be, giving you guys softballs anymore. Mr. Meatball, make your case for why you should get a point over the Uncleus of Mike's to our very savage chat. And then B, what's lighting up your tape today, sir?
Well, I would say that I had microphone problems and I was actually chiming in and you couldn't hear me. That's why I had to switch to this mic. So I was attempting to buzz in when you said nobody. You just couldn't hear me. But I knew it was Sergeant Slaughter because I am a Slaughter man. I'm a big fan of the Slaughter. One of my favorite wrestlers of all time. He's a giant head above Hulk Hogan in terms of where he stands, mostly because of the G.I. Joe, but also because he was just an awesome wrestler. No one will ever. He had his own version of the camel clutch that was great, and all kinds of other things. So he was just the best. But what I will tell you is that, it's been interesting as we've rallied, as we've gone from unchanged to up near 4,300. We've seen vol slowly increase a little bit. We're coming off a weekend. Weekend adjusted. We're pretty flat for the day. But it's been interesting that as we've rallied, vol has not backed off and has actually started to get a little bit of a bid. The vol ETPs are off their lows and rallying. That's not usually a great sign. So things feeling a little top heavy on this market. So I'm going to be very interested to see what the rest of the day looks like. But it's an interesting one to say the least in terms of how we've traded and the way vol is moving and VIX and everything that goes along with it. Individual names, oil's getting a little smoked off of some really, really negative news in China. The fact that China emergency cut rates by a point, that'll tell you things, they came in positive, but everyone knows that things were pretty bad in China. So that news was not great. And we have some interesting. Apple continues to kind of hold the market higher, and we've got some nice squeezes in Blue Apron and Best Buy continue to happen. And that is kind of everything on my radar today.
As I said, I was thinking about giving you both points. They say no points. It is kind of the same thing. One is a more optimistic way to start off this new round of, I'll be generous. I will be generous. I'll give them each a point, which effectively, you're right, means we're back to where we were. But it sounds a little bit better than saying no points for you. No soup Nazi here on the show today, even though it is fine. I will take the Meatball at his word that he had technical problems. He was typing in the chat that saying that, can you hear me? So I will take him at his word that he knew the one, the only Sergeant Slaughter. And he is going to put in his fights. Now, you might have to train up your boy, the Rock Lobster here, Mr. Meatball, because he's going to be popping in for you some days on Mondays. And he might make you fall behind on the Guess the 80s Wrestling. You got to train that boy up.
He will not be subbing in for me while we're competing for this Sergeant Slaughter character.
All
There's
right.
no way.
All right. I'm just letting you know. When he subs in, he's not exactly knocking it out of the park on the 80. No. He knows Hogan and maybe Macho, and that's probably about it. So
not good.
I would not rely on him. So right now, Uncle Mike is at a 2-1 lead because he did get the point from last week. So we shall see. The contest is heating up. And the listeners are playing too. Maybe we'll have to have a fun prize for the listeners too. I don't know. I don't know how I can keep scoring these unique items, listeners. They're very hard to get. Instead, let's keep on rolling. You guys want a sweet? I don't think I can get you a sweet Yo Joe vintage Sergeant Slaughter, even though it is. And these are not the 3 3/4. These are new, modernized 6-inch, legit, modern styling, modern functionality. Looks pretty cool. All right, I digress. I can't wait to have him out here amongst my various oddities here in the studio. All right, let's go around the horn. Let's see what kind of oddities we can find here in the market today. And VIX kind of doing some business today. You know, it's not exactly a shrinking violet today, but it's not exactly exploding out of the gate either. 216 on the tape right now. That looks pretty good, especially when I tell you the next number, which is the ADV, which is just anemic, 425,000. So VIX seems certainly on pace to hit that. So maybe we start to see that number bumping back up again. Again, we are in August, listeners. There's 2 times of the year when you expect VIX to not really do a heck of a lot. It's mid-August and mid to late December, and we are certainly hanging out in one of those periods right now. SPY saying, hold my bear, kid, on the VIX front. SPY already doing 4 million contracts. You know, these whipsaw kind of days tend to drive some paper in the broad indexes, and that's pretty much what we're seeing. The ADV about 6.5 million right now, so SPY certainly seems on task really to hit that. SPX also not playing around today. 1.35 million contracts on the tape. Usually the S is maybe struggling to get within spitting distance of 1 million right now, so decent paper in the S. The ADV 2.1 million. That has been trending down lately. I got a feeling after today it's going to go back in the other direction. A small cap's taking a break. They have been moving like crazy of late and also doing a lot of paper. And listened to Twifo last week if you want more details on that. 392,000 contracts on the tape today. Small caps are kind of unched right now, so not really feeling this move today. The ADV is 745 though, so it seems like they're on pace to hit that. And then the Qs 1.4 million, kind of a rare light day for the Qs. The ADV is a little bit shy of 2.5 million, so it seems like it's probably going to hit that out there today. Let's get out to the single names, see what's lighting things up. Number 10, we got our old friend, the Diz. What's going on with the Diz? Up another almost 3 handles, 2.3%, right around 124, almost 124.5. 222,000 contracts, by the way, listeners, is what it cost you to break into our top 10 most actives today. So that's a fairly active day. You know, this time of August, you might be forgiven for expecting 130, 140,000 contracts on the tape. We are far from that. So that's at least something. Number 9, we got Snap. Haven't talked about Snap in a little bit. Let's see what's going on in our old friend Snap. By the way, 237,000 contracts are Snap number 9, up about half a buck or nearly 5%, 12.20 for Snap. Is the end over? Is the end behind them for Snap? Let's see, how low did they get? They got to $9.34. That was back, looks like earlier this month. So they've had a nice little run already. They've already rallied almost $3 from their low just a couple of weeks ago out there. So is Snap back? Have they snapped back? There we go. We shall find out. Number 8, kind of a frequent offender here, AMD, 299,000. Number 7, right behind it, got our chip buddies and back-to-back here. Number 7, NVIDIA, 331,000 contracts. Then we go out to the meme land, AMC back in our top 10 again today. Number 6, 331,000 contracts. Actually giving up nearly $1 today, about 80 cents or about 3.3%, hanging out right around 23.60 right now. It's had a nice little range, shot up to 24.09 this morning, then sold off to 22.87, then back up to 24, almost 24 and a half, and then right back down to 23. So it's had quite the run already today, hence the impressive amount of paper on the tape already. What is AMC at this point, listeners? Are they a gold miner? Are they a theater chain? Are they some other crazy endeavor? By the way, I'll get to your thoughts later on all this meme paper a little bit later, maybe on the mail block, what you guys thought for last week. Number 5, this name, it's like they became a meme for a while. Are they going to go back into it? Let's see. Ford, over a 16 handle right now, 16.34, up about 16 cents today. So a nice pop for Ford. Let's see, 379,000 contracts at number 5. Man, this is like, if you showed me this top 10 right now, maybe outside of Disney, I might say this is like June of last year. This has the whiff of it, listeners. We have Ford, we have AMC, we have Snap in there now, number 4. Good old Bed Bath & Beyond, another name that was in our 2-part death poll from late 2020. We had Bed Bath & Beyond versus GameStop, and oh, how wrong we were in both of those. They're both still alive and both apparently thriving, at least today. Bed Bath & Beyond up another almost $1.50 or 11%, trading right around $14.40 right now. They hit a 15 handle earlier today, 15.07. Good for 385,000 contracts. Number 3, it's Amazon, 418,000 contracts. Number 2, it's the fruit company, the one Meatball was saying is kind of propping everything up right now, up another buck. This name, I mean, they were just at 130 not too long ago, and we were talking here on the network, maybe they're going to hit the par strike. Are they going to break 100? That would certainly have been interesting for Apple. The answer instead was no. It's almost right back up to their 52-week high, which was almost 183, 182.94. So, I mean, that was pretty much their apex of all time, and they are within spitting distance, $10 of that now, listeners. So if you look at Apple, all is right with the world, in spite of the fact that, as Meatball alluded to, things not exactly rosy in China. The market seems to be just shrugging that news off. And then number 1 with a bullet yet again today, listeners. We got the old TOSAW with, 936. So they're back almost within spitting distance of 1,000, up $37 or 4% today. Let's see, how low did they get? 620 was their low for the year. That was back in May. That was back in late May. May 24th was like around that time. So they have bounced considerably from that. They're still off 21% on the year, but they have rallied quite a bit from their low. Good for 975,000. So nothing at $1 million today, but a pretty heavy day nonetheless. Also a heavy period still for earnings. It's not behind us, listeners. We are still in it. Tomorrow we've got Walmart and Home Depot, so giving us a nice broad cross-section of the big box retail, and of course home building. Home Depot, a key sign for what's going on the home and construction and contracting side. Got more of that on Wednesday. Got Target, Lowe's, and Krispy Kreme, so we're going to get a double dose of those sectors. Plus throw some donut ball in there. Why not on Wednesday? Thursday, we got Kohl's, BJ's, and AMAT, Applied Materials. And then Friday, we'll be back to John Deere and Foot Locker. All right, let's see what we've got here. We do have, here we go. We got some updated earnings reports here for today. Let's look really quickly what we're pricing in for Home Depot tomorrow from our friends over there at Oratz. Let's see. Home Depot, as the time of this report, was $314, almost $315. They're pricing in nearly $13, $12.98. In the past, they've moved $11.04. So looks like they're pricing a little bit extra juice, which, given the fact of what's going on, the volatility of the housing market, the volatility of lumber, that in of itself probably adding a few points to this straddle out there right now. It's like Home Depot is exactly a point below right now. It's $313.18. I just pulled it up, so it has moved the buck from there, but still about $13. That one's popping off tomorrow. Walmart's big bellwether for the broad economy. 132.25 is where it was trading as of this report. They're pricing in $5.62. In the past, they moved $4.33, so $1.30 worth of extra juice out there, listeners. Intriguing here for Walmart. Let's go out. How about a little bit of donut vol, aka Krispy Kreme. Donuts, let's see, 17th before the bell, 14.75 is where they were trading. They're pricing in about a full buck. In the past, they've moved 82 cents, so a little bit of extra donut juice. Target, same deal as Walmart, 17th before the bell, 172.5 is where they were trading. They're pricing in $14. In the past, they've moved 15.87, so they're actually pricing in substantially less juice, while Walmart is pricing in substantially more juice. Wow, about $1.85 less juice in Target versus $1.30 more juice, roughly, in Walmart. Wow, interesting. And again, on a percentage basis, it's even more intriguing. You can check that all out for yourselves, listeners, here in the report. We have more in this report. I just kind of give you the cliff notes here. It also gives you 30-day implied minus the earnings, so trying to remove that earnings premium for you. The historical 90-day vol minus the earnings juice again. So trying to quantify what exactly is the earnings bump and then removing that. So kind of giving you a more accurate vol estimate and versus implied versus the past, all sorts of stuff here just in this one report. And there are many more reports for your reading pleasure. Just go out to AMAT. They're on the 18th after the bell. 118 and about a half is where they were trading. They're pricing in $5.37. In the past, they moved about 4.25. So fair amount of extra juice there. Oh, here's our old friend Stone Cold. Haven't seen them in a long time. Stone Cold, 18th after the bell. This is, of course, Stone Cold listeners. Let's see. They're pricing in $1.44. In the past, they've moved $1.77. So actually pricing in less juice out there in Stone Cold. Wow. Interesting. Let's go out to one else. Hit Foot Locker really quickly. Foot Locker, 19th before the bell. $31.50 is where they were trading. Is there a lot of shoe vol? Let's find out. $3.50. Actually, $3.60 is what they're pricing in. In the past, they've moved $2.85. So a fair amount of extra juice on Foot Locker as well. Let's see. So far, that has been the right move because we are hanging out right now at 116% for the season. So week 1, 95%. Week 2, 101%. Week 3, 121%. Week 4, so far, 138%. So that all averages out to 116%. So that's a pretty robust cycle so far, listeners. Previous to that, we have been averaging for the full cycle 86%. So this is substantially more juice, more vol than we have been seeing. No exits or entries for the earnings trades today, but we're still looking at 89 long straddles and 62 short straddles. 62 long calendars. I'll have to ask them what happened to the short straddles. They took that section out. I know they had about 40 to 50 short straddles that they were monitoring, so I'll have to go check what's up with the short straddles. I know Matt will be joining me a little bit later this week on the advisors option. We can ask him that directly there. And of course, that's just part of the just tsunami of content that is coming at you yet again this week because we like you folks. As we keep on rolling, it is time to get weird. It is time to get wild, at least weirder than we have been already, listeners, because it is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild, we get crazy. Mr. Meatball. Our chat has another good idea. We were joking before about the rock lobster, how he's going to mess you up in this contest. And our chat has suggested if the rock lobster gets one right, it's an automatic win for him. He wins the contest, but he gets his own prize. So he just needs to get one. What do you think, Mr. Meatball?
You know what? At a minimum, it should be worth like 3 points because that guy has no chance.
We'll have to do something for him. Then we have others saying he wouldn't appreciate it. It's a good prize, they say, should be saved for people who appreciate it. But definitely he should deserve a prize. So we'll have to figure out, maybe our chat, so full of helpful suggestions today. Maybe they'll have a suggestion for what a suitable prize is. Maybe a nice monocular to go over with his Eye of the Cyclops branding. We shall see. Meanwhile, let's keep on rolling out here into the land of weirdness. Let's get out first to Revolve Group. We've been out here before recently, getting back out there again. These days, they're kind of on that high-end kind of, I think, fashion retail and all that sort of good stuff here. Let's get out to, by the way, ticker symbol Revolve, RVLV. I do believe we have some trades from them in the oddities to be watched file. We'll have to dig up and see how I don't think they have expired yet. Let's get on out to what they're trading. Trading right now, $27.31. A year ago, $59.53. Then they shot up to their apex for the year, like many things did back in November. $89.60 is where they were hanging out. Then they kind of gave up the ghost to $41 on January 21st, and they rallied again. While everything else was selling off in mid to late February, they were rallying, got to 61.25 on February 15th. Then they sold off again. Then they rallied again. Then they sold off again. And this time they got down to where they are right now, right around $24. That was in May. And ever since May, they've been kind of bouncing in this mid to high 20s range for most of the rest of the year. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron found out here. Well, it seems like someone else has perhaps noticed this range that Revolve Group has been in for this year, and they appear to be trying to profit from it because it looks like someone coming in this morning blasting out on 8,502 of the September 20 puts. So that would be well below the bottom end of that range. Their 52-week low was $24. So $20 is nowhere even close. Let's see, how far back do we have to go to get a 20 handle? You got to go back to 2020. That's right before, actually right after the big sell-off is when they kind of got clipped. And they got down to $7 and change. But outside of that period, until August of 2020, they've been mostly above $20, pretty much before and since. Let's see. So $20 would be an interesting level. They got 31 cents for these. They actually got a penny worth of price improvements. They sold these 8,502 times. That is an 85 vol, listener, so they're not playing here. The stock was right around here when it went up, $27.43. There are no earnings in this section. That's not even an earnings play. The earnings are in November 2nd. So this is just straight up old school, looking at a nice line on a chart and saying, I'm going to harvest some risk premium. Mr. Rock Lobster, I mean, it's not the most juice you've ever seen, but I can't say I hate this one. I'm sorry, I called you the Rock Lobster. Mr. Meatball, I can't say I hate this. I don't super love it, but I don't hate it either. What do you think, sir?
Yeah, no, it's just looking for yield. A little over 1.5% for a month of being short puts. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Makes total sense. Kind of a line in the sand, willing to take delivery and collecting some risk premium. So it just makes total sense. Probably a yield play. Maybe they're willing to buy at that level. We don't know.
I would have to imagine they would probably be willing to buy it, but hey, they'll take their 31 cents. It was 8,502 times. I think most of us would be down with that. What do you guys think about these? You guys like yourselves a little bit of cheap puts to hit? These certainly fall into that category. Decently attractive level for the stock, decently high level for vol. So yeah, can't say I hate these bad boys. All right, let's go on. I'll put these in our to be watched category. Maybe we'll come back to these. Now, how about from Revolve and their dealings to Abominable Snowmen, huh? How's that sound for a transition? I think it flows naturally right off the tongue because they're going off to YETI Holdings, Inc. Ticker symbol YETI, YETI. Let's see. Are these the folks that make the crazy tumblers? Those things are pretty amazing if that is them. Those things are just unbelievable how you can put a cup with ice in it and come back 8 hours later at the end of the day and there's still ice in the cup. It's amazing. So if they make these tumblers, I tip my cap to you. They are the parent company of YETI Holdings, YETI Canada Limited, and more. Ticker symbol YETI, like we said, trading right now $45.20, off about half a buck. Let's see. On the year, a year ago, they were trading 102.18, so they were feeling their oats a year ago. And then they hit their apex again, like a lot of other names, in November, 108.82. And then ever since then, it has been straight down. Rough year for them. They hit their nadir $38.77, actually on the same day as Revolve. It's right around May 24th. Interesting. And ever since then, it's kind of been bouncing in a similar range. It had a brief flirtation with $54 on August 3rd. Then it got clipped again, right back to where it is. Outside of that brief spike, it's been hanging out in this mid-40s range pretty much since May as well, kind of spinning its wheels. So intriguing stuff here for YETI Holding. I need to find out if they make those tumblers because those tumblers are legit. I think I have some in the studio somewhere here. I think we've sent some to you folks. How much we like you guys. All right, let's see what our Eye of Sauron found here. We've got 3,958 of the SEP 35 put. Seems like a similar trade to our previous friend. Looks like folks coming in today looking to harvest a little bit of the old risk premium. Looks like they sold these. These were 25 at 35. They got them off for 27 cents. So again, like our other friend, they got price improvement on a pretty fairly decently sized trade. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Getting almost 4,000 of these off, getting 2 cents better. That's not bad. 61 vol if you are so inclined. So they're also selling a pretty decent vol level here as well. Let's see. The stock was a little bit lower, about 20 cents lower when these went up. So nothing huge. There are no earnings in this cycle either. This is just, again, the earnings are on November 10th. This is yet again Mr. Meatball. And 35, this is also well below the 52-week low. So this might be the same character coming in, just harvesting premium across the board, finding some charts that look a little range-bound right now, finding some attractive levels in the stock, and just blasting away at some premium. This time he's getting 27 cents, 3,958 times in YETI Holdings, sir. What say you?
That's what it appears to be. They are, and this is YETI, the tumbler company, so you like that.
Oh, this stock needs to be 5 times its value then, because those things are amazing. Do you have one of those?
they're headquartered in Austin, Texas.
There we go. That's why they're so terrible.
Yeah. So it may be the same guy. A little worse sale. Not getting 35 puts, 27 cents. So less than 1%, but still a decent sale, an interesting sale, and probably a line in the sand, looking to collect some yield. I get it.
I'm using a regular glass right now. I feel like a schmuck for not going to get my sweet Yeti tumbler right now because the ice would be there all day. I could put ice in our shows in the morning, listeners. I could be doing shows all day. There's still solid ice in that thing. 6-8 hours later. It's insane. What voodoo are they doing, listeners? I defy you. As a former chemical engineer myself, I find that mystifying, which is always fun to me. So yes, this stock needs to be triple its value. So buy it all. I don't hate these puts either. Again, not quite as good as the other ones, but hey, folks getting out there, getting a little bit of yield, getting decent levels in the stock. If it does get put to them, you can't hate on that. All right, let's keep on rolling. Speaking of puts and perhaps decent levels, let's find out. Let's go back to a name that was a frequent offender a lot here on the show not too long ago. In particular, we're going to go back to July 18th, so just about a month ago. And we were talking about Canada Goose. Remember this one, listeners? Makers of unlike the Yeti, which is an expensive tumbler, but is worth its weight in gold. I think you can argue, I don't know, I have never worn one, but I don't know if that extra patch on the Canada Goose makes those jackets worth whatever their premium is, 1.5x, 2x. But I digress. Canada Goose Holdings. I'm not going to tell you where they're trading right now. It's a bit of a spoiler. Back on the show on July 18th, we talked about someone coming in, and it looks like they were just going to town here in the August, expiring on the 5th, 15 puts. They went up 14,110 times. Now, here's where it gets dicey. The market was a nickel at 15 cents. These went up at 11 cents. So you could argue maybe they bought these bad boys, but if they sold them, that's a pretty decent price. The stock was $18.43 when these went up. And there were, weirdly enough, if they were buying these, this is the argument against buying them, because if they were buying them, they would probably want them to go through earnings, and the earnings were the week later. They were August 10th. So why would you buy puts expiring on the 5th if the earnings were a week later? So that maybe looks like they were maybe selling them, getting a little bit of premium in. They got a heck of a fill if that's the case. Doing that 14,010 times. Remember our chat was talking about at the time, they said people were selling the 16 puts before, and they sold some too. They liked that trade. And they said the same person, if that was them, was right last time. And looks like this person, if they did sell these bad boys, they were right, because the stock was $20.05. Another sign that they probably sold them was that the fact that they were still open at expiration. If they bought these, they maybe would have tried to get some value for them towards the end, but that was not the case. So it looks like if they sold these, Mr. Meatball, they pocketed about $1.50. Again, it wasn't the most premium out here, but it was a decent size here. What are your thoughts on this line in the sand put that appears to have worked out for our friends here in Canada Goose, sir?
I mean, 11 cents is 11 cents, but hey, you know what? They made 155,000 on them. Probably wanted to buy it if it dropped below. So hats off, but there are probably better ways to harvest premium than tying up that much margin to try and collect 11 cents. I still don't love the trade, even though it worked out. Just because you win doesn't mean it was a good trade, and that's kind of my take here.
Yeah, there are opportunity costs to tying up that much capital. Remember, listeners, you gotta tie up all they got. 14,110 contracts. That is not nothing on the 15 strikes. So there's no free lunch in this. So is the 11 cents worth it? $150, $150,000? Is that worth it? Is that going to cover your collateral and margin costs and opportunity costs? There is an opportunity cost to this as well. That's up to you. Yeah, the level we didn't like. Maybe the direction we were okay with, but the level, not so much. Let's see if we're okay with what comes next, listeners. It is time for the strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the strategy block, the portion of the show where Uncle Mike dispenses wit and or wisdom. Before we get to that, let's look really quickly out here in the chat. We have Frank saying Greasy Meatball and Uncle Mike both deserve a point today, so he's being generous. He says Rock Lobster should get something if he gets one right. He agrees with Option Queen that he's probably not as cool as what you guys get. Yeah, okay. And then someone else, Unlimited, says Rock Lobster should get a Yeti. I don't know if that's a pretty awesome prize too. Those tumblers are amazing. So I don't know. Does Rock Lobster deserve a Yeti if he gets one right? I guess we'll have to debate that going. You guys are full of all sorts of great suggestions today. Keep them coming. All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. What fuel do you have to drive the debate and discussion in our chat today, sir?
I mean, if I take the meatball at his word, I didn't actually know it. So if the meatball got it, it should be his point, not mine. So I know that doesn't make for good radio content, but I'm a man of honor when it comes to the greatest sport ever invented, pro wrestling. So I think the meatball should have the point, quite frankly.
Deferring a point. Wow. Okay, that would make us at a tie. Interesting. Wow. Such generosity, but we expect nothing less from the uncle.
Well, I mean, pro wrestling is a sport of honor. And yes. So
just ask the Iron Sheik.
Exactly. It's a sport of honor to where rules are strictly enforced. And if we don't have fair competition when it comes to pro wrestling, then quite frankly, we're a sham.
Yes. Then all law is meaningless if there is no law in pro wrestling, right, sir?
You're absolutely right. So with that being said, today I want to talk about a trade I refer to, or a strategy called the knockout collar. So if you're at a stage to where maybe you've had some money in cash and maybe you want to get into the market now, but you're just kind of concerned, the stock's increased a little bit, you think it has some more upside, but you think it might pull back. You like the stock at the levels it's at right now, but you'd love it if it were to come back to it. You're just concerned about a little bit of a pullback. You're not necessarily concerned about a major downturn in it, just a minor pullback. Well, I'd like to introduce the knockout collar. And so this is a strategy that it's been around for a long time, since option trading has began, I'm pretty sure. And so the way with which this works is that I've talked about a traditional collar on the show before, and I've talked about this strategy as well. But the way with which it works is that the traditional collar is you're buying a stock at, let's say, $40 a share. You sell a covered call at the 45 strike. You buy a long put at the 35 strike. And you'd usually do it for no cost. The cost of the 35 put is mitigated by the credit you receive from the 45 call. And by doing that, you have $5 of potential upside and $5 of potential downside, meaning that if the stock were to go significantly below 35, you're protected at 35 and you didn't have to pay anything for that protection. If the stock were to go up to 45, of course, the disadvantage is that you'll participate on the upside, but anything past 45, you're going to get called away on, and that's the disadvantage of the collar. Now, with that, let's say that you're more concerned with the stock going from 40 to 35, meaning if you're thinking, you know what, if that thing goes to 35, I'd buy that today. I'd be really happy. I don't need any protection past 35, but I'm kind of concerned of it going from 40 to 35. Well, that's where a knockout collar could come into play. You would still sell the 45 covered call, but instead of buying a 35 put, you would buy a 40-35 bear put spread. And what that does is that gives you protection from 40 to 35. Now, of course, I'm making up these numbers, folks. So have an understanding that this will not work with every stock. But what you can do is that if you're looking at a collar and instead you're thinking, you know what, I'm okay if it goes down to that level. I like the level down there. You can look to see the cost of the long put versus the cost of the at the money put spread. And if it's the same thing, then you can put on a knockout collar. One is neither better nor worse. It's just that it's a way with which to shift risk. I still say to this day that there is no option strategy that is more or less risky than another if you're going apples to apples. All option trading is just a form that you can, a form where you can shift your risk in a way with which you deem more comfortable for your objective. Now, of course, if you buy 10,000 out of the money calls versus buying one in the money call, then the out of the money calls are probably going to be more risky. But if you're buying an in-the-money call versus an out-of-the-money call, or a knockout collar versus a traditional collar, yeah, of course, there's more monetary risk in one versus the other, but you'll have more time decay risk in one versus another, or more immediate versus more disaster risk. It just depends on what way you want to set up your risk. And if you're in the situation to where you feel that you want to own a stock, but you want to protect against a small pullback, and you're willing to give up some upside to do it, a knockout collar is something with which to consider. If you would like more information on the knockout collar, follow me on Twitter. I'll be tweeting out a video for this within an hour or two at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW.
There you go. Give him a follow on Twitter. If you don't, listeners, we'll retweet it for you so you can find it. But you should be following him if you're listening to this show as we keep on rolling into the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, let's get out to the mail block, see what you folks have on the brain. Mickey, 1984 Army retired. That's right. He's our new Army vet in the chat. He says, I love this show. Well, welcome to the club, Mickey. We love having you in there. We love having everybody in there. You're right. It is a fun show. It kind of has a unique place on the network. We just put it that way. Nowhere else do we talk about 80s pro wrestling to such epic extent, as well as so many other fun things. So, yes, we're glad you guys are having fun. You guys want to join in on the fun? Listen live, have fun with all the crazy folks who are having fun here right now. Lots of fun folks in the chat over there. TheOptionSider.com/pro is the place to go. While you're searching for places to go, head on over to Add Options. Make your voice heard on our question of the week. Let's pay off last week's first, and we'll get into this week. Last week, you guys were coming in hot and heavy over our meme stock debate. We said last week, inspired by this show, it was a rare double question of the week last week. We said we've seen an explosion of call options paper in GameStop, AMC, Vroom, Be Big, and others, which raises the question, is the meme stock frenzy back? And 69.3% of you said yes. So overwhelmingly, you folks are saying we're back in meme palooza. Only 30.7% of you said no. So intriguing. You folks are feeling the meminess coming back. This week, got a different type of question for you. We said, hey, VIX is back below 20, or maybe as we speak, kind of right at 20. Is this the beginning of a new volatility regime or just a blip on the radar? Quite simply, will VIX still be below 20 at the end of Q3? So not this month, but the end of Q3. So the end of September, listeners. And intriguing stuff. David, 3 choices. Yes, no, or hey, VIX is confusing. I get it. Let's go out to the meatball first. Mr. Meatball, A, are you surprised that our audience overwhelmingly thinks the meme stock palooza is back last week? And then this week, what do you think they're choosing for will VIX be below 20 at the end of Q3, sir?
I'm not totally surprised. The retail crowd is always looking for that next big thing, and that was the most exciting trading that we've seen in some time. So not totally surprised. They're wrong, but not totally surprised. And then in terms of VIX, I think they're going to be saying sub 20. I think they're feeling bullish, and I think they're going to be saying sub 20.
Interesting. Uncle Mike, your thoughts on the fact that our audience overwhelmingly thinks the meme stock palooza is back. Maybe there's a little bit of hope in there that they want it to be back. I mean, it was crazy times. And then B, what do you think they're feeling for this week? Do you think VIX is going to be, or I should say, do they think VIX is going to be below 20 at the end of Q3? Yes, no, or VIX is confusing?
I think that they think that the meme stock is being back. I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but I do think it has to do with hope. I don't necessarily think it's back. I think that was just a very unique time, just because whenever I have college or high school level offensive linemen talking to me about meme stocks before football practice, then typically stuff like that doesn't last very long. So I don't think it's back. And so that's my thought on that. And I think the audience thinks that we're going to actually be above 20 because that's why I think our audience is thinking.
I get all my best stock tips from the center on the football field. So that's where the good stuff comes from. Forget the barber. Forget the taxi driver. It's the center, baby. He knows this stuff. Right before the snap, he'll whisper you some sweet stock tips. Let's see what our audience is up to this week, because we've got this week our audience overwhelmingly 68.6% saying VIX will not be below 20 at the end of Q3. So intriguing stuff. You think we're heading north again in VIX? That makes sense. You have been, for the most part, overwhelmingly bearish on this market ever since this rally kind of began. You kind of thought it was a little bit overdone. So that would make sense that you would lean north on the vol front. 17.6% only saying yes. And 13.7% of you say, hey, VIX is confusing. If you're in that nearly 14%, might I suggest you checking out Volatility Views on Friday? We can maybe help you down that road. As we go around our final segment, it is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on for the rest of this week until we can gather here on this program again on Thursday. Mr. Uncle Mike, we'll start with you. We are flirting with and around that 4,300 level. Is that what you're watching, or what's attracting your attention until Thursday, sir?
Watching 4,300 with bated breath. So keeping an eye on that. Keeping an eye on the 10-year yield to see if we can make another run to the higher side, or at least on the 10-year note, not the yield, excuse me. Continuing to watch that and still monitoring commodities, and that they've kind of just been sideways for a little while. So seeing if there's going to be any breakouts there. And, the VIX is at 20. That's kind of important. That's what I'm watching.
Mr. Meatball, same question for you, sir. What are you keeping an eye on until Thursday's show?
Yeah, again, as I said on the top, I want to see, are we going to touch 4,300 and where do we go from there? Why is the VIX rallying with the market every time we try to push toward 4,300? And, what's kind of the next move in the EV and green space? We had the Inflation Reduction Act pass, which was a green energy deal in truth. And we saw huge moves out of all the energy infrastructure, EV and energy names. Is it going to be kind of a sell the news? Do they disappoint? Or are we going to see some continued rallying in those names? That's kind of my big question. And then finally, what is the long-term or medium-term effect of this China news on energy? Are we going to see a continued downturn in WTI, or is this a one-day blip and they step in and buy energy?
All right, everybody. That music means we have come to the end of another epic sojourn here through the world of trading. Man, we packed a lot of living into the show today. An epic Guess That 80s wrestling. I guess we came down on the end of the day on it's no point for Uncle Mike and a point for the Meatball. Uncle Mike honorably giving up his points. That means we're tied now in the first 2 weeks now and going into the battle for this epic prize. Will the Rock Lobster get a tumbler out of it? Who knows? Yeti tumbler? I guess we'll find out. Let's go around the horn. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. In addition to giving up your point very charitably today, what else should folks reach out to you about over there in the land of St. Charles?
Hey, no charity, he earned it. If you want to follow me on Twitter to keep up with the content with which I'm putting out, at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW would be the spot to be. If you want to discuss possibly using me as a financial advisor, myself and the team of experts behind me at RCM Wealth Advisors, go to my website, stcharleswealth.com, and sign up for me to talk to you.
stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. Check out all of his legion of content. He does this show, of course, but he does his own videos. He puts out stuff on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, a bunch of other places. Check him out, listeners, if you are so inclined. And while you're checking stuff out, make sure to check out the land of the pit. Mr. Meatball, if they head over there, what will they find?
Yeah, we're writing really valuable content every day. Come to options.com and read the VIX Edge and Pit Report and all the and the pit stop and everything we put out, because it'll help you become a better trader. We're here to help. Optionpit.com.
Optionpit.com is the place to go. We got to get on out of here, listeners. Don't worry. If you're listening live, we'll be back in a little bit with the one, the only Mr. Bill to break down everything going on in the world of crypto. Yeah, there's some vol to be found out there. What's going on from a vol, skew, OI, unusual activity, all sorts of fun perspectives, and a whole bunch more. Mr. Bill, he's always got probably a cool altcoin or two in his back pocket. That's always fun to pick his brain about as well. It's always fun you can talk to another former options market maker who's now deep into the crypto rabbit hole. It's always fun to see what they'll find. So if you listen on demand, just hit next. It should be waiting for you there by the time you finish this show. Then, of course, back again tomorrow for the Pro Q&As with Mr. Scott Nation. Start getting those questions in now if you haven't already. You'll have your email, too, with exactly what time that is. Wednesday's still a little bit in flux. Dan's doing his mastermind live over here right down the street at the SEBO. He's asked me to come down there, so I'm not sure. We'll be recording a show, I think, there. I'm not sure if we'll be able to beam it out live to you folks. So stay tuned on the live for Wednesday. You'll definitely get it live to tape on demand. Whether we'll be able to logistically beam it out to you from the SEBO, I don't know, but we'll have to figure that out. And then, of course, back again on Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.